Topic 5 covers other regulatory authorities. That is other than the SFC, the Securities and Futures Commission, which we've looked at. Now, an important one is the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the HKMA, and the first few bullet points there gives us the standard duties and activities of the HKMA. It's headed by Chief Executive, manages the exchange fund in Hong Kong, manages Hong Kong's monetary policy. It's required to maintain the currency stability, ensure safety and stability of the banking system, promotes the efficiency, integrity, development of the financial system, and there we are, supervises the banking system. Now, these are classic central bank activities, but what follows is a little bit more involved. Rather than wade through those 3 bullet points, let's look over to the right, top of page 22. And this shows us the relationship between the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the HKMA, and the SFC, and their relationship with the regulated activities, which we'll come to shortly. Now, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority supervises authorized financial institutions, the AFIs. Now, all banks are AFIs, but not all AFIs are banks. Money changers like Western Union would be considered an AFI, but not a bank. We are interested in those AFIs, those banks that perform, I'm on the left, perform an SFC regulated activity. Now, if they do, they must register with the SFC. They're not licensed with the SFC, they register with the SFC, and that wording is important. And as such, the entity will be known as a registered institution. So the HKMA supervises all AFIs, which in turn means it supervises all registered institutions. Now, if we look on the other side, we see all the non-AFIs, that is the brokers, the advisors, the financiers, etc. They are supervised by the SFC. They're not AFIs, and they must be licensed by the SFC to carry out an SFC regulated activity. And as such, they will be known as licensed corporations. Registered institutions and licensed corporations are collectively known as intermediaries, and all these terms come from the legislation, the Securities and Futures Ordinance, and are must-knows for the exam. So when it comes to supervision, the supervision is one-to-one mapping. That is, HKMA supervises registered institutions, SFC supervises licensed corporations. But when it comes to regulation, there is some crossover. The HKMA regulates the registered institutions with regard to banking activities, but the HKMA does not regulate licensed corporations, whereas the SFC regulates both registered institutions and licensed corporations when it comes to the world of securities and futures. We can now look at those last 3 bullet points under section 5.1. Under the SFO and Banking Ordinance, authorized financial institutions which are regulated by the HKMA and include banks have to be registered with the SFC as registered institutions if they wish to carry on an SFC regulated activity. Now it makes a little bit more sense having looked at the diagram. HKMA, frontline regulator of the banks, the AFIs, and takes a leading role in vetting applications for registration with the SFC and supervising SFC regulated activities. And finally, HKMA applies all SFC criteria when supervising the AFIs. Section 5.2, the Registrar of Companies. The Registrar of Companies, or also known as the Companies Registry, is a government department in Hong Kong. It sits beside Pacific Place and administers a number of the ordinances. It's nothing to do with licensing. It's not licensed itself. Second last bullet point there, it does not directly regulate companies, but it does take an active interest in corporate governance issues. Okay, let's move on. Other regulators. The Insurance Authority, be aware, but not heavily examined. The Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority. That is the authority that oversees mandatory provident fund schemes in Hong Kong. Again, read through, be aware of, but not absolutely central. Section 5.5 looks at the markets, the stock market, the futures exchange, and they all come under the umbrella organization, Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing Limited. Now, that is the holding company. It's known, as it says there over on the right, as the Recognized Exchange Controller. It is a listed company in Hong Kong. And in turn, it owns all the entities below it: the stock exchange, the futures exchange, and the three clearing houses. That is the Securities Clearing Company, Options Clearing House, and the Futures Clearing Corporation. Now, those entities will be explored in a lot more detail, including the systems they operate, in topic 4. This is very much an introduction to it. Section 6, overall licensing regime, the key features. Well, we've covered this in topics 3 and 4 in paper 1, and be aware of the key features. The 10 regulated activities are extremely important. The first 3, the dealing activities, dealing in securities, dealing in futures, and leveraged foreign exchange trading. Those are the 3 dealing. The third one is OTC, over the counter. The next 3 are the advising activities: advising in securities, advising in futures, and advising corporate finance. And the last 4, I would say, are more ad hoc, providing automated trading services. We'll see what that is later. Securities margin financing, the lending of money to investors who wish to borrow to buy and hold listed securities. Asset management, the world of fund management, and the provision of credit rating services. Now, for paper 2, the activities that you're going to be examined on are: number 1, dealing in securities; number 4, advising in securities; number 7, possibly providing automated trading services; and number 8, definitely, which is covered in topic 5, securities margin financing. Okay. Be aware of the concept of responsible officer outlined in section 6.6. This is all licensing and registration material. Substantial shareholder. Exclusions. Here, these activities, or rather these persons, do not need to hold the required licenses in particular situations. Be aware of those. Also, be aware of the difference between temporary licenses and provisional licenses. Now, this is all topic 1 material, and unfortunately, the vast majority of topic 1 material will not be examined, but we need to have a general understanding. And as I said earlier, there are the 4 topics, or rather, beg your pardon, the 4 regulated activities that are covered in paper 2, types 1, 4, 7, and 8. Now, dealing in securities, yes, this is one of the activities that's covered in paper 2. Please be aware of the definition of securities and derivatives that's covered there in section 7.1.1. Important point to take from this is that options on securities are securities. Options on futures are futures. Now, some people, especially traders, tell me that's nonsense. Well, we have to go with it in terms of the definitions in the legislation. So options on securities are defined as securities. Options on futures are defined as futures. The vast majority of products are deemed securities. We then have the definition of dealing in securities and the exceptions. We have a list at the bottom of page 29. Those activities are not deemed to be dealing in securities. Then, part of the way down page 30, approved introducing agent. Be aware that there is such a concept of approved introducing agent, a middleman who introduces clients to dealers but takes no role in the trade or transaction, and they have a lower level of required liquid capital. That's the major point. Okay, moving along. Topic 8, or rather I should say section 8 of topic 1, the fit and proper requirements for licensing. You should be satisfying all these criteria to first secure your license, and secondly to continue holding your license. And if you break any of those requirements, the SFC may suspend or, worst case, revoke your license. Continuous professional training under section 8.3, be aware, 5 hours per activity or per competence group to be technically correct, and the third bullet point covers that. Activities allowed as part of continuous professional training are anything that involve interaction with other individuals, and we've listed some there. For example, attending courses, workshops, lectures, and seminars. Does that come up? Yes. One question on CPT, usually very straightforward. Okay, corporate governance and regulatory supervision. The fact that corporate should be managed in a way that no one stakeholder is disadvantaged. And we highlight the role of senior management in that process. And we look at what is considered to be good corporate governance. And third bullet point under section 9.3, there are possible mechanisms are installing checks and balances such as separation of chairman and CEO, having non-executive directors, audit committees, independent strong audit function, remunerate. All that is considered to be good corporate governance. And we have other material, other details listed there. Provision, section 10, provision of information to the SFC. This is bringing together all the information that has to be provided. It's a good checklist and all the things that you must provide to the SFC. And it's also got details there on SFC investigations. If you are under investigation by the SFC, you must comply with those investigations. If you don't, the problem is you could be breaking the law. Okay, that brings us to the end of topic 1 of paper 2. Now, the issue with topic 1 of paper 2 is that there is a lot of material in there, the vast majority of which will not be examined. However, it does act as a foundation for topics 2 to 7. So I'd make sure I have an understanding of all that material without drilling too deeply. I would recommend, however, that you go to Examinator.online, do the practice questions, and those questions will cover areas that have been previously examined.